Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tales from a Safe Distance After Party. We hope you enjoyed the finale of our world premiere, The Bolts of Fortune. Thank you for joining us. I'm Tales co-creator and composer of The Happy Hour, Peter Hilliard in Philadelphia.
And I'm Tales co-creator and librettist of The Happy Hour, Matt Barresi. Now, I've been saying I'm in Chicago, but we've got some real Chicagoans in the house tonight, so I've got to come clean and say that I'm at Northwestern University, so I'm in Evanston. So now that the 312 is here, I have to admit that I'm a little bit 773. But there's a lot of Chicago land at the party, so I appreciate that very much. We want to thank you for streaming this show. If you've been with us for all 4 episodes, thank you so much for purchasing the ticket. Thank you so much for your donations to the member companies in the coalition. Thank you for taking a chance on us with your Friday nights. We hope you enjoyed the creativity, the ingenuity, the diversity on display. We hope you enjoyed tasting the terroir of locally grown opera. Please don't be shy about telling us what you thought tonight. Ask us questions. Let you know if you want to see more from the Opera Coalition down the line. But thank you very much. Now, it's worth mentioning that if this is the first time tuning in, there's 3 more episodes that come first, and they're up all for the rest of the year. They're going to be up, and your ticket entitles you to watch those as many times as you'd like. It's streaming on demand for the rest of the year. So now you can go back and watch all 4 episodes in a row and get a full, robust evening of opera and a big arc, and you can tell your friends. What a great way to spend the holidays when you can't get together with other people. You can watch this opera over and over and over.
Fantastic. You know what, Matt, if you're going to be like that about it, I'm technically in Villanova, Pennsylvania, in my office at Villanova. All these books. I just want to piggyback on that and remind everybody, the small companies that you saw presenting this work over the last 4 weeks are really the lifeblood of opera in this country. Big opera companies, that's fine. Yeah, sure, go see an Aida every now and then. But these small companies are where it's at. They educate new audiences. They train new singers. They birth new works like the ones you just saw. They create new opera lovers. And they sweat it all out with a skeleton crew and a whole lot of love and drive. And we really want to thank all of them and honor all of them because they really made it possible. And it's extraordinary what they were able to do.
Absolutely. Now, Peter, help me out. If people want to ask questions of the members of our after party, they can. I always mess this up. I say you can put it in Friendster. You can type it into a speak and spell. How do you ask questions?
Well, I think they are watching this right now. They can comment under that. And the portal on the website is a great place to do that. But there are people who are watching those chat spaces, and they'll pass that on to us, and we will do our best to pass your questions and comments on to this incredible group of people we've got assembled here.
Maria, is there any other places that they should be entering questions if they are so inclined?
No, I think that covers it. We're streaming to Facebook Live in addition to on our episode page, and there's a place to comment in all of those places, and we're watching it.
Thank you to Brennan Sellner, to Danny Brilo from Milwaukee Opera Theater, to Bob Wood from Urban Arias, who are booping the beeps on the back end and getting those questions to us and making this whole thing straight and go. Thank you. All right, so we should introduce the folks who are attending this party. There's a whole bunch, so I think I'll call you by first name, and what I'd love you to do is tell us your name and tell us your role in this whole big, crazy endeavor. And why don't we start with, I'm excited. We've got 2 special guests tonight. Kathy and Christian are here. Kathy, introduce yourself, please.
Makes me go first. Behind the scenes girl goes first. Kathy Whitman, I'm the video editor. And something of a consultant, though I have to tell you the 2 companies that were featured tonight needed no consulting. I consulted them to get information about their stories to help us put together the frame story. But I came in early. We started working on this in August, long before there was anything for me to do. But I helped edit together the frame story and created the episode. So slid in the pieces and made it into the film that you got to see.
Welcome, and she undersells. She has not slept in weeks.
It's true. I'm so tired.
And she's moving boxes around and editing people and lining things up. Because keep in mind, there were 375 separate files sent from singers all over the world to make the frame story, and Kathy made that into something cohesive and coherent, and it's just shy of a miracle. So thank you, Kathy.
It only looks good if it sounds good. So now talk to the next guy because he saved all of us.
So,
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm the resident recording engineer for Resonance Works. I worked on compiling and mixing and somewhat syncing and cleaning up and matching the audio for the sourdough episode as well as the happy hour pieces.
I feel like it should be noted that you have the most beautiful microphone in the room.
Yeah, I would hope so. It's part of the job description.
the fact that these pieces sound, gorgeously matched and conducted and blended, and the cutoffs that you hear and the togetherness that you hear is so much magic by Christian. Real expertise and extremely hard work and virtuosity on his part. Christian, thank you so much.
Well, of course, I won't take all the credit for it. Of course, it wouldn't be as cohesive if it wasn't for the conductors in charge as well.
Very nice. Thank you. All right, speaking of conductors in charge, let's go to Resonance Works and meet Maria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Sensi-Sellner. I'm the Artistic and General Director of Resonance Works Pittsburgh and conductor. And I was really proud to serve as the lead producer for the Decameron Opera Coalition, which was a real thrill. And I'm also tired, Kathy.
Wonderful to have you. And Maria has really been the tip of the spear on the Decameron Opera Coalition. So thank you for all you've done. And it's wonderful that tonight we get to celebrate your company's work as well, which was absolutely gorgeous because it was by the inimitable Gilda Lyons. And Gilda and her brother Chris are here. Gilda, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gilda, and
I'm Chris Lyons, Gilda's brother.
Composer and librettist and illustrator. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I'm so excited. I have so much to say. I won't say it right now. I'll just say it was fabulous. The whole thing, front to end. So thanks so much.
All right. Well, if this is anything like last week's after party, we'll take this well into Halloween. So we'll have plenty of time to talk. All right, let's meet the cast of Sourdough. What a sound out of this piece. Let's see, in the order that I have it in my document here. Tess.
Hi, my name is Tess Altaveros, and I sang the role of rock star.
And Brittany.
Hello, my name is Brittany Renee, and I sing the role of boss.
Very nice. And of course, you saw Brittany as Pam, the Pompanea surrogate in the happy hour. And Joanna is here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joanna Latini, and I sang the role of Shazam.
Speaking of the names in this piece, Tess, could I bother you to show you to show off?
Yes, of course. Well, of course, this is challenging. But if you'll notice my swag, wait.
Rockstar.
There goes my computer.
They've got shirts. We didn't have shirts.
We got swag.
All right. Well, let's talk to Chicago Fringe Opera, and let's see. Is George back in the house? Looks like he is. My friend George, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. George Cedarquist, Artistic Director at Chicago Fringe Opera and the Director for Corsair.
Very nice. Welcome. Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine O'Shaughnessy, Music Director of Chicago Fringe Opera, and it's been such fun seeing what everyone else put together for this project. It's the first time we get to see the frame is when we're watching it tonight, so it's pretty great.
Oh, amazing. Wonderful. Well, and it was wonderful to see yours, and I can't wait to talk more about it because, a lot of ingenuity in this piece by none other than K.F. Jacques. Kari, could you introduce yourself?
So my name is Kari K.F. Jacques Laurent, and I am the librettist and composer for Corsair.
Bravo. I see that another member of the cast of Corsair is here. Takesha, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Takesha Michelle Kizar-Thomas, and I'm just excited to be here to be a part of this amazing project that Kari put together. So I hope you enjoyed it.
We certainly did. Well, welcome. And I want to give a shout out to Brad Caleb Lee, the production designer on Corsair. He's not on the call with us right now, is he?
No, Brad lives in Wales.
Oh.
And so it's approach. I mean, he's a baller, you know, but it's like almost 4 o'clock there. So he's probably in his gym jams working on his next project.
Very nice. Well, a shout out to Wales and to Brad Caleb Lee. Well done. Okay, that's who's here. Why don't we dive in, Peter?
Well, you know, I was talking to Matt the other day after I saw I saw this episode for the first time, I think yesterday in its totality, and I texted Matt that this episode is the promise of the premise. You know, you go, oh, we're going to see a lot of different operas, and they're going to be very diverse and exciting. Man, these two operas are so different and so wonderful. They're just lovely each in a very specific way. And I would love to just talk to the composers here for just a second. Gilda, how did you get these delightful soundscapes? I mean, maybe people who aren't composers think it's weird when we ask each other about our influences, right? We're like, well, isn't that asking about stealing? But influences are a lot for a composer, right? So, Gilda, what are your influences? How did you get that sound that's so distinctive?
I don't know. I don't have a straight ahead answer. I mean, I think as composers, we are a result of all of the things that we've been living with and processing all our lives. And you know, my mom's from Nicaragua, my dad's from South Buffalo, and so folk songs have been like integral to my life. I grew up listening to pop music, and when I was starting to sing opera for the first time, no one knew what to do with me because that was not my, opera wasn't my life. It was a thing that I found, but I had all these other places that I wanted, that I lived, It's not that I wanted to go there, it's just that I was there, So I think that my music inhabits lots of different worlds, and that for me, when Maria started asking about or presented the project to me, and we started talking a lot about where we might go, that was living right now, these were the sounds that I heard, and these were the characters that I heard, and so that's how they came to be. I hope that answers your question, Peter.
Well, it's answered. It's much better than what I had in mind. But it's such a delightful soundscape and so whimsical and unexpected. So many things that just caught me by surprise in the most wonderful way. And you have so many places. Composers are always looking for something that is surprising and feels inevitable. Like, oh, it could only be that way. And you keep doing that over and over again. It's
well, I was so very close with the material, the way we are, right? And we've got composers on this line right here, so we all know we're really close to it. That's as it should be. But then to turn it over to these performers and to Maria and her music direction, that was and to be close in collaboration with this guy here, who we had a shorthand. It was all very intimate. So I felt like I got to take risks because the team was just so solid.
What a treat! Now I'm jumping into somebody else's question here, but have you two ever worked together before?
You want to answer?
Yeah, Gilda runs a concert series in New York City, or has for years. So we collaborated on simple things, posters for promotion, but never anything like this. And to create these characters, after listening to her first rough cuts, imagining these performers, which I could not in my wildest dreams have imagined these voices, but listening to your original score, and then the characters just came into my head, and the thing just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Very collaborative. It was really great fun, especially with my sister.
What a treat! How wonderful, Kari. Now I really got to talk to you because people who know me and know Matt and my operas know that we like to combine things together that are strange bedfellows, right? So like the last opera that we wrote had bluegrass in it. We wrote an opera with blues in it. And I love to see two things that might not go together and find how they go together and find the like points of connection and the language that they share and build that. Now, I everything that you sent, every time I got a track that came from you, I was just stunned. I just love this music so much. And I want to know, how you find the commonality between the musical worlds that you are exploring. Like, where do you find the similarity between hip hop and opera in the way that you do? Go ahead, talk to us.
Sorry, my connection's kind of bad, but you asked how I find the commonality.
Yeah, the commonality between hip hop and opera, because you make them go together so beautifully. How do you discover that, and what do you think the commonality is?
So that is kind of like the billion-dollar question, because I always make a joke. Like when I first started my master's program, that's when I first started dabbling in like engineering and sort of doing like some hip hop beats and stuff like that. And it was terrible. Like the things that I would come up with when I started, I was like, oh, I'm gonna put opera on this, and it was just like, there were things that I probably shouldn't have let anybody hear, but I was letting people hear it all the time. But then again, that probably that really informed my my decisions now. So it was a lot of error and some trial, and I feel like now I can do it a lot better than I used to. So I don't think that they naturally go together. Like you said about the strange bedfellows, it's just one of those things where if you force the issue enough, then it's going to be something. And I feel like I found a place where I get those chills, where I get comfortable with it.
Well, I think, I hope your connection holds up, because I'm hoping to hear more from you. In today's art, music world, these worlds are coming together more and more, right? Like we're seeing these come together more. And they're much more successful now, I think, because the people who are writing and combining the styles are fluent in both styles. Do you know what I mean? They understand both.
Yeah.
They're not trying to like learn about hip hop enough to put it in an opera.
Right.
Opera and they speak hip hop, and then they can find a way that they go together. And I think,
Yeah.
You clearly are very fluent at both things.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you see that going forward for you?
I feel like, well, it's interesting. So when I started doing it, it almost wasn't a thing. The only thing that I had seen before I really got into it was there was a Carmen with Beyonce, and they did this, MTV version, and it was like that was the only thing I saw. After it happened, no one spoke of it again. I'm not sure even Beyonce remembers doing it, but it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, like it's everything has a pioneer, someone who does it badly first, and then it wasn't terrible. It just wasn't. I just felt like it wasn't catchy. It wasn't something that people could latch onto, and so when I got into it, I was kind of like the only person doing it. I actually coined the genre operatronic back in the day, but the more I start doing it, the more iterations that I hear, and all of them are actually very different approaches to the idea of combining hip hop and opera. But the more I do it and the more I see other people doing it, the more this term of hip opera starts coming up. And so like maybe about 5 years ago, I found myself using hip opera instead of operatronic so much because it communicates something to people. So they automatically have something to latch on.
Well, Beyonce, if you're listening, we mean no offense. You made a big difference, a big impression.
She's quite the pioneer in so many different fields. I'll take this one away from her.
That's right. No disrespect.
Well, I have to tell you that when Peter and I sat down to write the happy hour, we decided that we tried to, we wanted to tee up each of the chapters. So we wanted to, where possible, where we had the scores, we wanted to take some music or some stylistic things from the chapters and pull them into the interstitials to set things up. So I thought, well, maybe we can have Kari's character do a little rapping. But then I realized at my desk that I was writing rap to hand off to KF Jacques, which not intimidating at all. The first time you're going to write rap, you're going to give it to a guy whose rap you really admire and listen to. And boy, did I let it out. And my wife is she's about to teach a hip hop offering at Northwestern and on Broadway on Demand. So she found me like pulling my hair out in the office. She says, "What's happening?" She said, "I'm trying to write hip hop for this hip hop guy that I really admire." And I don't know if I pulled it off, but he elevated it so well in his the little raps.
I gotta say
not very
that.
long.
So I've been in situations where, where I've had people write for me before, and I would tweak words. I'm always like tweaking to make it sound more KF Jacques, and I was entirely prepared to do that this time. And then when I saw it, I was like, okay, they studied. Okay, all right. So now I was like, okay, this is actually it really was very natural for me, and it really was. It seemed super informed, and I appreciated it. That's all I can say about it. It was really
well. Thank you. It was a huge honor and a pleasure to have you interpret it. So thank you very, very much. Well, let us talk about. So we're getting the comments are lighting up here, and they are extremely appreciative and effusive tonight. A few things that have come out. Speaking of the Chicago folks, a couple of people have mentioned how well Chicago is represented aesthetically in Corsair. Jim says, "Stunning work. Love the Chicagoland so much. Very, very, very neat," in all caps. Robert says, "You've really captured the beauty of one of the most beautiful cities in the world," and you certainly did. People want to hear more of this. Albert says, "We must agree with the line, 'Let's not wait for the next plague to do this again.'" And Alan says, "When is episode 5 coming? Inquiring minds want to know." He also says, "I want more. Loved you, Joanna, but miss seeing you in the cartoon." Of course, Residents had such an embarrassment of beauty. I mean, the singers that they have are incredibly facile performers and actresses, and Joanna's an amazing comedian. Of course, all of them are stunning beauties, and we watched illustration. That's the depth of art and gorgeousness that they had at Resonance Work, is that they could just not even show some and still have it be and the whole affair be stunning. I want to ask about the visuals here, because the visuals were stunning. The way Chicago was captured, those illustrations. Why don't we start with Gilda and Chris? Tell us more about your process, how you discovered the looks. Gilda, how did you decide it was going to be an illustrated piece? And once you did bring Chris in, how did you decide on the look that it would have?
Well, from the beginning, the very first conversations with Maria about the project, I knew that I wanted to be the composer librettist. And very, very soon, I think an hour after the first conversation, I said, "Maria, I've got an idea. Can we talk?" Usually there's a composer librettist team. And what if the composer librettist teams with an illustrator? Would that be something you'd be open to? Because I happen to know an illustrator that I trust and that is pretty boss. And so that's when I had her take a look at some of Chris's work. I mean, he's got a US stamp. Like, I don't think it gets more legit for an illustrator than like a stamp, right? I mean, that's just like, I won't ever have a stamp, so but I'm related to that guy. So I had her look at his work, and she was really interested, and so then that's when Chris came in. We had our first meeting.
And I typically work for print. I don't do a lot of opera work. So to take my prompts from music and from her wonderful libretto was a completely new experience for me, and one that I found really fascinating. I mean, I love her to bits, so it made it that much more fun. But it was a real challenge not to work in print and work in this medium where it was purely conceptual. And to imagine what these three performers looked like was just, at the time, just projection. And the way it came out, I mean, I thought it really matched up wonderfully with their personalities.
Yeah, because we were writing before it was cast. And so what we did was I took my first draft of libretto and created a live Google Doc that Chris and I had, where we were writing notes to each other as I was composing and as little things were changing. I'd throw him an idea and he'd respond, the next day, what do you think of this? And so it's a very close collaboration. But we knew going in a handful of things that we wanted to create a space where these characters could be lots of different things. We wanted some ambiguity in who they were and what their worlds were, because that's really what the piece is speaking to. So.
Well, you certainly pulled it off. Just a feast for the eyes, and it certainly married well with. There was a lot going on. There was a density of message and just a plethora of ideas happening in the piece. So to be able to choose exactly the density of line work and so forth to allow us to receive all that information at once, hats off.
Yeah, I think that Chris's ability to strike that balance and give you something that's abstract but also visceral and beautiful, and the color schemes. Maria asked me she said, what do you think would be a good representation visually? And I'm like looking at all of his illustrations. It was the hardest choice, So, it's that the visuals in his hands was really a joy.
Well done. Well done. And now, as siblings collaborating on art, friction.
He's my big brother and always been my hero, and I used to make him wear party hats and sing me songs. So no, it was good.
Still doing that.
Yeah, I think that was kind of what this project was too. No, we like each other.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, let's turn our attention to Chicago. So you did have the most beautiful city in the world to work with, but you captured it, you elevated it, you worked in the time of lockdown when I don't know how free you were to move around the city or be on top of Buckingham Fountain. You were on a sailing vessel. I don't know whose sailing vessel that was. You were underwater at certain times. Please, George and Team Chicago Fringe, how did you pull this off?
Yeah, when we were conceptualizing it, first of all, I knew there was no way I was going to read the whole Decameron to find the story we were going to do. So I just thought to myself, it's got to be about Chicago. What is to me the single greatest thing about this city? And it's Lake Michigan. So I found a searchable copy of the Decameron online, and I just searched for the words lake and ocean and water and river. And I found two stories. And one of them was about a pirate and the woman who saves him. So obviously that had to be the one. And then I said to Rick Schuler, our director of photography, said, look, man, and to Brad Caleb Lee, the designer, every single shot has to have water in it. If it's the lake or a bathtub or a kiddie pool or a jacuzzi or a boat, this whole piece, that is the visual thread that is going to carry us through. Threw that to Kari. He loved the idea. I said, look, we've obviously got you. We need some other, and he cut me off and he said, Takesha. It's got to be Takesha to play the other role. I was like, great, fantastic. And that was it.
Well, a great choice. Takesha on the shores of Lake Michigan singing this wonderful music. That is a trifecta of grandiosity that was overwhelming. So well done on that choice.
Thank you.
So, Takesha and Kari, what was it like to film? To sing in the wind of the Windy City on the shores of a mighty and threatening lake. What was the process like of filming, of making making an operatic film, period, two, of making an operatic film out in the wild? We'll start with Takesha.
Well, it was a very interesting process. I was at home with my husband and my new baby. And I all of a sudden got a message from Kari. And Kari and I have known each other for years. And he's like, oh, I think she's probably out of the country somewhere. Let me ask her. Let me see if she might be available. I was like, yes, absolutely, yes. I heard his music and I was so excited because I'm in the midst of actually writing an opera myself as the librettist. Yeah. And so my operatic writing partner, Jory Nance, we're very interested in melding these different forms of music and different genres of music. And when I heard what he had to offer, I felt so proud, obviously, to be connected to someone who I'd known since the days of studying at Roosevelt University. And I'm a native of Chicago, and I was never really connected to Chicago professionally. I immediately left from here to Texas, and then from Texas to Philadelphia, where I was able to springboard into an international career. So to be able to come back to the city that I was born in and my musical foundation, and to showcase it in such a beautiful way. I was game for whatever they had to offer. I mean, it was freezing cold. Obviously, it reminded me of my wedding day, actually. I had my wrap on, and then when it was time to go, I was like, okay, breathe and go. But it was really, really exciting. I just think that this is the beginning, to be honest with you. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to start something that is groundbreaking, that is earth-shattering, that is motivational, inspirational. And when I saw what he brought to this, what George brought to this, I just want more. I don't know about anyone else, but I want more.
Likewise, likewise. And congratulations on the new baby.
Aw, thank you.
We've got 3 new babies in the cast of Tales from a Safe Distance. We've
What?
got Josh from Sharon from Urban Areas, and Takesha from Chicago Fringe. I'd like to take credit for it. I think the process started before before the opera did. Congratulations. Kari, how about the filming process? I mean, you went underwater, man. Like, what was this whole thing like?
So it was just to be outside. Well, first of all, Lori Lightfoot has been shutting things down left and right. So Lori Lightfoot is our mayor in Chicago, and she was very proactive on the first round, and then on the second round, it seems like she's secondary to even our governor Pritzker, but when we were filming, we were kind of wondering, okay, is this site going to be open? Is this site, like, she was putting up fences and barricades. And there was one beach that we were at where they were trying to kick us off of the beach. Actually, the part where I was laying on the sand, that was under major duress. Like, we were in the process of being kicked off the beach at that moment. And my wife happened to be there, and she did the cat from Shrek, the little eyes, so that we could stay on the beach for like 5 more minutes. And this guy was like, keep it moving. So,
although, look, Kari, let's be honest, like, you really didn't want 5 more minutes in Lake Michigan at the end of September. I mean, we were standing there, and I'm like, all right, man, you ready to do this shot? Because it is walnut time. All right, so let's do this.
So true. But it was totally worth it. The shots are like really amazing, really dope.
Oh my gosh, that is a harrowing tale. Well, thank you for.
Look, baby.
Oh.
She's adorable too. She's a tall.
What a doll! What a doll!
I don't know where she gets it.
She was a very integral part of the recording process. It's not you. It's not you.
Well done. And what's her name?
Joelle Mache.
Joelle. Lovely.
Yes. Yes.
What a sweetie.
She should be asleep right now. So she's been calling mommy for a while. Hence her appearance here today.
Oh, what a doll.
Well,
while we're talking, go ahead, Peter. Sorry.
From the other 3 singers here, from Tess, Joanna, and Brittany, if it's very rare for opera singers to be in Lake Michigan, right, like cold, but I think also rare for you not to be like seen at all, right? That's got to be like an interesting, an interesting deal here. So talk about that. I don't know who to go to first. Who's got the Who's got the tea?
Sure, I'll say that it was really interesting figuring out the sound. And I know I sent, some clips to Maria and some to Gilda and saying, what do you think of this approach to this, at least to this passage? And I know in our first meeting we had talked about what this sound was for all of us, especially, I mean, look, there was so much text and it was very ensemble driven, and all those chatty moments, like what should our sound as Shazam be, and what should the sound as kind of the backup vocalist potentially sound like? Are they the same? Are they different? How do we want to do it? So a lot of trial and error and just a lot of discovery, I think, through the whole thing. Of course, it would have been different if we were all together. Maybe we would have gotten to the sound a little quicker than we did. But
it sounds like what you're saying is that since all you had was the sound, you needed to kind of lean in that direction and see where that took you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that your experience, the other two here?
Very, very much so. I I think the thing was that I think during this whole quarantine, when doing anything virtually, whether it be ensembles or solos or opera, whatever it is, it was always dealing with video. So when, at least for me, when Maria was like, oh, you're good, you don't have to do video, I was like, oh, great, I can just focus just on the voice and recording. But then of course, from just that and focusing on that, because, we have our in-home do-it-yourself like studios, then all of a sudden that became such a huge other different problem. So to me, it was something where it was nice just to like focus on one thing and not necessarily on the visual, because it's so different. But again, it also arised all new problems, I guess.
Yeah. I definitely had sort of was of two minds hearing that we were just going to be an audio element, and one was relief because Brittany, I mean, we've been doing so many videos during this time, and it's man, if we had to add that element into the mix, it would have taken so much longer. So that was a relief, but I also had this moment of panic that was like, well, how, like just my voice? I can't also rely on, stuff that my face does, or, you have to try to communicate with just your voice, which is an interesting exercise. Nice to kind of go back to that refined, instrument. But I think there was a lot of just sort of faith, like I'm just going to kind of put it out there and see what comes back, and if it seems to work. If it doesn't seem to work, I'm sure I'll hear about it.
Well, it worked. It worked.
On a related note, a message here from the internet. Patricia says, Brittany, I could not take my eyes off of you. Beautiful vocals and convincing small screen reactions as well. I mean, people were very much working. So many people were building new skill sets and working outside their comfort zone. People singing on film, people singing for voiceover, people singing here instead of 3,000 seats back over an orchestra, right? This all involves new skill sets and questions of scale and the process was so quick. So these learning curves had to happen in these microscopic time periods. And that's true for, I think, just about everyone on this call. Brittany, can you speak to that, since you've gotten this compliment on your small screen act?
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you, Patricia. Wow. Let me just, I probably should just say for all singers, it's just trial and error. Like it literally was take after take after take after take. And I can't even, funny story, basically, since I was doing a lot of the happy hour and the little sections in between, like the Zoom call, my phone actually ran out of storage like halfway through. So I'm sitting here trying to make sure this is it, because I was doing so many different takes, because there was something where I think Matt and Peter, you had mentioned something about, oh, make sure you guys make an emphasis here, or make sure this is together. And of course me, because I'm so worried about making sure that I'm saying these words and that they're clear, that I would totally miss over an action. So I had to go back. Honestly, again, trial and error, as well as just telling the story. I think that's the thing that sometimes maybe singers, because we're so used to performing for such larger venues, that all of a sudden when you just have this box, that it's kind of you have to really hone in. And it's crazy is that opera singers now have to do what, television and what these voiceovers and everything else have to do. We've never kind of had that extra thing. So it was like a quick learning to be like, okay, how do I do this? Or I would actually ask friends who would had to make small cuts and films and stuff because they were sending in things for commercials. And I was like, how do you guys do this? Like, what can I do to make sure that, like, this question is here or this and this? And I say this especially in the Zoom call where, you can only follow along through a score. All we heard was our part and, the music underneath, but not having anybody else was something where it's like you're reacting just to music and hoping that you're doing it right and not just having like a blank stare on your face.
I think that's so true. Sorry to cut you off, Matt. I think that's so true, Brittany, that there is this learning curve. And I'll only speak for myself in addition to the other directors and creative teams. I mean, I was raised in the black box theater on a $500 mentality. And put me in a black box with a piece of blue silk and I will make magic. Put me behind a camera and I don't know what the hell is going on. And we were on location. And again, Rick Schuler, our director of photography, I'd be watching the scene. And he was like, George, you got to look in the monitor, man. You got to look in the monitor because that's what everyone. And I was like, oh, right, the monitor, cool. And on the first day of shooting, I could not bring myself to say action. I just couldn't do it. It felt so fake. By the last day of filming, I had that puffer jacket and the scarf and like the gray beard and the headphones and my own chair. It was fine.
George, on that note, do you think there may be more films in your future?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that many of us opera artists in this pandemic are making our peace with this medium. I've started calling it camera opera. That's the phrase that I've come up with because like it's not really opera, right? What we're doing, and it's not really film either. And to me, camera opera, which is a reference to sort of the opera da camera, but that feels to me like what the art form is that we're making. And I know at Fringe, the rest of the projects this year are heading in that very direction. And I'm just so grateful to have had this project, to have mentorship. Kathy Whitman, Ball Square Films, mentoring us as well, and to have this chance to learn.
Wonderful.
I just wanted to say, George, that's how I feel like now I'm ready to do the project.
We've been hearing that a lot. Like, now I know how to do it. I would love to throw it over to Maria and Catherine just to hear about because you both do this all the time, but never like this, right? I don't know who to go to first. Catherine, go ahead. Tell us about how this experience has been for you.
Well, I had a really easy job on this one, probably the easiest of anyone on this screen, partly just as Kari just took this and ran. It was amazing. We had a Zoom meeting, we talked about this, and later that day he was sending samples. And so there was just a little bit of finessing discussion of like when something really called for that operatic technique versus the more hip hop style. Like that was discussed a bit, but I really had an easy job compared to Maria. I don't know how you got all of that to blend so beautifully, how you managed to convey the same information to all three singers and get such a beautiful blend. I was floored.
Yeah, see, Catherine knows what you heard that, and you heard it like a conductor.
I thought they were in the same room. I thought that was the only way you could have done it.
How did you do that? We're all just watching. Oh, that's pretty. That's so lovely. we don't think about the technical end of it. Maria, you want to give us your secrets, or is that like proprietary?
Oh no, sure. I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that this Zoom call is the second time that our three singers have met each other. This call. We had one at the beginning, like when we were ready to start the process. We had the score, the score was completed, and Gilda we actually had a complete film because Gilda and Chris worked hand in hand through the whole process. So actually the illustrations were done when the score was done. And we had a call, we got to talk about all this stuff, everybody got to meet, and then everybody to their own corner, and these three wonderful singers are all over the place. Tessa's in Seattle, Brittany's in New York, Joanna's in New Jersey, and then it was a testimony to their musicianship, to their ability to be creative and imagine what this would be like if we were all together. I mean, it was a little scary because, I mean, I've put together some ensembles like this before, but not really to this level of complexity. And I mean, it was really thrilling. And this is really, it was, I actually did a lot of the syncing myself. I learned a new piece of software that I had never used before, which had me up in very late hours trying to, fighting with it and swearing a lot. And Christian, worked so much magic on this. Really, like, I cannot believe that how much it sounds like they're in the same place. Because it actually still sounded pretty good, but they were obviously in very different acoustics, and that was the challenge, and that was the process. And we got a lot of takes, from everybody, and it was to our benefit that we didn't have to match one shot of video to go with all of those takes, so it could actually be done kind of surgically in places where we needed it to be, because obviously there are moments of that score that are just so tight, text-wise and rhythmically. But Christian's a magician on that.
Well, Christian and Kathy, like that's you all are looking at, all of you in the audience are looking at the frame stories and saying, oh, it's a Zoom and it's like assembled from video, but the stuff that you got, the files that you got, the video that you got, the audio that you got was wildly different and had to be made to look like it went together. Maybe you don't want to share because it's now you're like, it's your superpower, but like, talk about that. How did you do that?
Well, it was definitely a learning experience. I will say that. This is not every day a project comes to you, and it's really nice to see the final product of it and see just how well it worked, because hours and hours and hours and hours of staring at the spectrogram of all of the frequencies, and eventually it turned into the Matrix, where like you just see the ones and zeros and they're like, oh, I can tell, Tess had a step there, without even listening to it. It got to that point of just taking a look at everybody's waveforms and everybody's spectrograms and analyzing how their rooms affected their voice and seeing just how much compromise can be made. Because of course, we're not at a point in time with technology that can completely eliminate everything and with the magic marker just say do gooder, right? That doesn't exist. And so it was really just finding a balance between the 10 voices or the 3 voices or however many voices there were in that particular scene, and adding a touch bit of extra high frequencies in one place and maybe cutting some of the low frequencies in another place. I do have a tool that lets you remove a little bit of the ambiance, but then again, it's always a compromise of if you take away too much, the program doesn't know. It's just taking away things. So sometimes if you accidentally set it to autopilot, you realize that you took out somebody's upper resonance, and then you're listening to it, it's like something doesn't feel right. So it really was, as with everybody else, it was a moment of teaching, a moment of learning, and ultimately a battle of compromises. And it was without seeing the video too. I'm just working off of the audio tracks there. The video adds so much to it. It having the audio and the video be pieced together in the mind helps make that experience so much greater.
Before we move to Kathy, I really want to hear from Kathy. We have a request from the internet for you to introduce your microphone. I don't know if it has a name, but someone out there is very interested to know. Do you want?
This is a Shure SM7B. It is a standard broadcast microphone used in many radio stations. It is going through a little module called a Soyuz launcher, which kind of is a make better, gooder sound machine. And then doing a little bit of compression and EQ on the way out.
I'm getting that NPR vibe from you there. Great. Kathy, Talk about you had like portrait, landscape, you had talk.
You know, I sound terrible compared to him. I know it. I got a little Mac microphone right down here.
You look fabulous.
Thank you. My bike is going to fall on me one of these days. Editing the frame story was both harder and easier than I thought it would be. I mean, bringing in all that stuff and syncing it there were some very late nights going like, oh my Lord. And I have to say, Kari and Brittany, both of you, the care and the attention you paid to sending it. Yeah, right? I mean, I'm so grateful. Kari labeled each one. It was all of a piece. He gave me a snap at the first frame of the click. Like I kept saying to my partner, I love this guy. I lay it in. Everything's there. The same with you, Brittany. Like you just knew. You put down, Pam would be start to finish. The whole thing would sync. It was all one take. And that she was always giving me a reaction. It was brilliant. They weren't all like that. And you have to be patient with each other in this time. Like we were asking everybody to do something brand new. They didn't have very much time to learn it. It was, we had laid out a schedule that was challenging for us. And then you send this music. I think Luca, his brain exploded when he looked at the thing. Like, there's a lot here. Like, I can't do this in 3 days. I take care with my work, So we, but once I got it all synced and got everybody lined up in their boxes and people started to find a home as the piece went on. So I started to be able to go copy Pam's square, put Pam in her square, copy Kari's square, put him in a square. Like that, those things started to automate. And then once I got into actually editing, the storyline was there, the dialogue was there. It was, and I don't know how Zoom has become a language to us, but there's sort of a rhythm to it. Like we feel the speaker view and you want to like jump in on someone and have a couple people up top reacting. And the frame story was so well written and the musicality was there that, we'll have some little faces pop up. Everybody will react on these beats or on the off beats or playing with the music and letting it be musical and not just dialogue. I'm getting lost in my words. I'm better at editing your words than speaking my own. But it was great fun. It was, once I got into the editing, it was a breeze. And I was so impressed at how quickly it all came together. Then my eagle eye Maria, as I'm blurry, is like, Kat jumped out of her box right here. And Kari's overlapping a little bit. And look at this frame here. And I'm like, thank God somebody's eyes still work because it's awfully hard to keep it all straight. But it was so fun.
What you were doing, Kathy, was far from just a technical job or yeoman's work. I mean, there was a huge amount of art to what you were doing and a huge amount of artistic interpretation and direction and evaluation of acting that you were doing. I mean, Brittany's a wonderful example. Like she was always in the moment, and her reactions were always, scaled correctly. Her vocal points were always correct. So she was always able to be, we always knew that Brittany could be front and center. And
she had a special place in the queue. It was like, okay, I know Pam's got something for me. I know Kari's got something for me. And then let's see who was on, who's like changing pages and trying to catch up.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I actually need to thank Maria for that, because before I was actually on a kind of mini vacation as I planned. So I kind of was filming and doing things while still on vacation. But the thing is that Maria, like as far as for like clicking and making sure that we were all together, Maria was the one, because before we had to film the sourdough, before we even, I think, got the music for the Zoom calls and the happy hour. So it's actually Maria was like, we just need to make sure that we hear this and this and that. So like from Maria's guidelines as far as for like what's good, because this was all new, like had no idea. She was like, this works better than this. And so I kind of just carried that over because I knew, but like Maria was the one who was like, I was like, teach me how to do this. I don't know how to do this. How can I make it easy as possible?
Yeah, and Maria and Kathy, I would get, I'd wake up in the morning and there'd be many emails and I'm looking at the timestamps and I'm like, for real? Really?
Yeah.
And then Matt and I actually, we did this yesterday, Matt. It was like 11:35. And we messaged Maria. We're like, are you awake? We want to pitch you something.
Oh, she's awake for sure.
Awake. And so we had a conversation 11:30 to 12:30. It's way past my bedtime. Maria's still going. Amazing.
My wife walked in after bothering Maria and was like, "Is she okay with you calling her in the middle of the night to pitch things at her?" And I said, "No, this is her time of day is the dark time." Yeah.
Well, so I'm generally an early riser, so but I was staying up a little later because I know I have to get it to Maria so that she can give me notes in the morning. So I would send off a draft, go to bed, I'd wake up in the morning, all the notes are there.
It was perfect.
And she's like off to bed as I picked up. It worked out.
Same story here. I had family visiting and I was, doing something at 1 or 2 in the morning, and then I'd send an email or send a text to Maria, and my mother was like, "What are you doing? Let her go to sleep." And I'm like, "No, this is unfortunately how it's gotten." And, even with Maria, we've had, a 3 or a 4 in the morning Zoom call, being like, because it's just so much simpler to speak, the little changes that you need to make or in the balance than it is to send an email and then back and forth 15 different versions.
I have to say that one was exceptional because my husband Brennan doesn't stay up as long as I do, and the next morning he's like, "Were you on a Zoom call at like 4 in the morning?" But that's how we finished sourdough, right? We were talking, going back and forth about some things, and he shared his screen with me, and he's got like extra fancy Zoom, so it sounded amazing, and and we were just able to take, knock it out.
Speaking of sound, there's a question from the internet about instrumentalists. We haven't mentioned that there's also instruments in many of these pieces. Was anyone able to hear the others? How did the orchestral part of this come together? Maria, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the musicians of our residence chamber orchestra, not many of them, only a couple. For sourdough, we had a trio of violin and double bass and piano, and we were able to be in the same room. Those are our players. They're all Pittsburgh musicians, and we were able to get a space. It was a big recital hall, and we were socially distanced. There were no wind players. We all wore masks, and we actually were able to, and Christian was there, so there were like 5 of us in the room, very far apart, and we had a rehearsal and a recording session for sourdough, and it was also our musicians that recorded the happy hour score. So we added to that trio a clarinet. We put some barriers. She was like in a little cubicle. That you can't get plexiglass anymore because it's in such high demand and it's actually kind of expensive. So this music school where we were recording made these amazing barriers out of PVC and clear shower curtains. They're just brilliant, and they're much lighter than plexiglass would be. So we put her in this, like, she was in a little shower. And for that, we were actually able to, Peter was able to zoom in to that to the rehearsal and to the recording session for the happy hour. So we were able to be together, but far apart. And you don't think that a couple of feet difference would make a big difference, but actually it does. And there was some adaptation. This was not the first thing we've done that way. We did a project earlier in September, where we had 5 string players, and they had to sit much further apart than they normally would. And there's time to adapt to that, because you're not used to hearing the sound next to you a little bit more immediately. But we were able to do that, and we were so happy. Like in that room, there was so much joy in being able to make music together. It was the first things we've been able to do in for us. We haven't had a main stage performance since December of 2019. So we had a couple of chamber recitals, but that was it, and everything else had been postponed. So we were really happy to be doing it.
We're happy for the work that you did. I will say there was a lot of joy throughout this process on the chapter level, on the frame level, that we were able to make art through what I hope is the worst of this. But it has been, we hope it was even a fraction of as much joy for the audience as it has been for those of us whacking away at this process. Some wonderful compliments here from the internet. More for the visuals. Marianne says the scene on Lake Michigan was terrific. Wow, I haven't been to Chicago in several years. I wanted to see more of it. Lori needs to hire y'all at Chicago Fringe to make some videos. Come to Chicago, see our scenic lake and our tasty beef and giardiniera. You should be in charge of our tourism, I think. Nayama says the artwork in Sourdough was terrific, unexpected, and very pleasing. The meld of image and music was outstanding. And someone else posted and said, I second. I vote for more graphic art in online opera. Chris, you may be at the beginning of something now. A compliment for everyone. Smiles. Wonderful to see you all without masks. And they are lovely smiles this evening. Such a wonderful culmination. I have to catch up with episodes 1, 3, and 2, and 4, but they were beautifully produced and I enjoyed the uplifting message. Another says such a wonderful combination. 2 wonderful operas that both looked like they were produced for many, many months. And then the delightful Sondheim-esque coda. So a number of people here are commenting on the message and the culminatory aspect of it. Now, no one knew, with the exception of Peter and I knowing we'd stick some sort of end cap on this, residents in Chicago Fringe did not know they would be in the last episode. They all laid out the pieces that they were going to write, and then Peter and I had to do a little curation and decide who was at the end. Now, there's a theme for the evening, which is, I mean, this makes it sound so quotidian, but there's a theme of work-life balance. But there's also, I mean, none of us have answers to what's happening in the country and what's happening in the world with COVID right now. But there are glimmers of hope and messages of carrying on at the end of Sourdough and Corsair and Happy Hour. Corsair, it's remarkable, given how contemporary Kari's interpretation of this is, it's amazing actually how true it is to a 14th century text. Because the story he adapted is very much about get money capitalism. But at the end, the Corsair finds a more balanced life and a way forward. Peter and I spoke with, early, I've told the story before, but early in the lockdown, I spoke to a distant relative of mine in Bologna. And I said, how are you? And what are we in for? And she certainly didn't mince words about the danger of it all and the horror of it all. But she also said, you must soldier on. So she didn't say this, but get Zen, right? Like learn to appreciate the moment, take what you can from this slower time. And the first time we spoke to Luca, it must be an Italian thing, he unprompted and without seeing a libretto because it wasn't written yet, said the same thing. He was horrified. He said, my goodness, I haven't sung in a zillion months. I'm heartbroken. It's terrifying. We must find these humanistic moments. We must look to love. We must look to art. We must look to food. And we must live day by day. So we thought, well, that's got to go in. And when Sourdough came in complete, I thought, oh, Gilda and I, and we, Gilda and I eventually had a long call to talk about it. But I thought, oh, I'm of such a mind with Gilda, like her. While there's not an end, her last, I believe, Sourdough. Does it end with a question? It ends with a question, yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone know how do I make sourdough?
So all of these pieces end with, to some degree, a question, but with a glimmer of hope and some sort of message of soldiering on. So let me talk to you other librettists, please. Gilda, it's been a time since you wrote this libretto. Do you stand by your statements and questions when you watched it tonight? Is Gilda the librettist from 2 months ago in agreement with Gilda here and now?
Yes, when all of this the changes of, for me, when I teach at the Heart School, and when we went into teaching remotely, we of course we didn't shut down. We started teaching remotely, but there was that sense of I think it had already been real, but that was the most kind of tangible thing. And when I was teaching, I had a moment of realizing I needed, in order to do all of the things that I needed to do, needed to commit to remaining open to what the universe had to teach me right now. And it's everything that I confront, and that I wanted these characters to confront, had to somehow interface with that. This is not where the story ends. This is a thing that we're all passing through, and everybody's passing through it in their own way, and there is no shared experience. This is really it. This around the world looks really differently from place to place. But that idea of transit is yeah. I still feel that. I still don't have anything figured out, and I'm still trying to find grace every day. And so yeah, I'm in agreement with that librettist from a couple months ago.
Very good, very good. Well, Kari, the same question for you and for George. Watching this tonight with 2 months of water under the bridge, no pun intended, to your piece. Do you stand by the messages you invented over the summer? Do you think the message still speaks to us? What do you think going forward?
Go ahead, George. All right. So yes, I do. The message was kind of laid out for us in the original Decameron story. Except in the original, you weren't sure that he actually learned a lesson. So we kind of spun it so that he actually did have some sort of catharsis by the end of it, by the end of his journey, so that we could see that it was a complete journey with closure. And yeah, we stand by it, and we also feel that it relates to this whole pandemic situation. I had mentioned earlier in a different talk, that everyone now is now that the economy, well, in March when the economy first crashed, everyone sort of got into this whole stock market trading thing, this like commercial, like Webull and Robinhood and all these commercial formats for trading and stuff like that. So that's heavily what our Corsair was based around. And I feel like the messages that were in it still definitely apply.
George, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the last lines of the piece, "I'm free," are absolutely on the money. The pandemic is dreadful. Let us not say that for some people it doesn't give the occasional gift, right? The gift of creating with new people, like Takesha, who I got to work with for the first time, for creating with old colleagues like Catherine and Kari, for learning new skills, for meeting new artists. Let us recognize the gifts that we are being given, however few and far between they may be, and let us retain that sense of I'm free in whatever we're doing.
Marvelous, marvelous.
I would love to just chime in on that, because I think that I definitely feel that as well, what George is saying. And for me, that was also connected to, Gilda wrote the libretto for Sourdough really quickly, and I continued to not be able to get through it without significant emotion, because fundamentally, Gilda, you gave voice to what I was feeling, and I feel like I'm not alone in that, and it helped to have it be given voice, and it helps to have somebody say, "No, we're going to be okay. We're going to do these things that there is a light at the end, that we are free, that we, I think that boredom can be beautiful." Right? All of these things, and it made me feel better. And as well as working with every face, well, I didn't work with some of you directly, but every face on this call. And those are those silver linings, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the original Decameron. A bunch of people are waiting out a pandemic, and they say, "Well, we're here. Let's tell some stories," right? And the stories help to give context and meaning to a world that increasingly has no context and seems to have no meaning, right? We use our art as humans to tell each other what it means, what it means for me right now. And that may change. I may discover a new meaning, but I think one of the beautiful things about a project like this is that opera, opera loves old stuff. We love old operas. We do them all the time. How are we going to do this old opera again, right? And we forget when we're putting on these giant productions of these very old pieces, which are beautiful. Hey, I love them as much as anybody. We forget that this is really about storytelling. It's about using music to tell each other stories. And some of the stories are new. Some of the stories are fresh from our hearts in contexts that have never happened before, and we get to share those. And I think, like, among the many lessons that we take from this, and in addition to like learning how to use new software and how to like talk to each other on the internet, part of what we take from this has to be this commitment again to listen to each other's stories, to keep telling stories, to keep making spaces to hear each other's stories, in all the places of our lives, but especially in opera. And what a wonderful thing, right? To get to spend all this time with these colleagues working hard on telling stories to each other and revitalizing, what the art form that we love, right? Everybody in this Zoom, everybody out there in the audience loves opera. We get to decide what it's going to be next. And we get to decide right now. We don't have to wait. We can make it right now. How wonderful.
And the audience seems to agree. We have some compliments here. First of all, someone has said, "Christian, you're a magician. Lovely product." And thank you. Ellen says, "Do it again, please." So, and thank you for the glimmers of hope. And please urge everyone to vote. And we do. Please go vote if you haven't voted already. And if you're going to do it by mail, don't drop it in the mail now. Go drop it in a box or hand it to someone, please. But please do vote. These have been 4 phenomenal Friday nights, each night filled with gems and speaking to both an earlier era and our own. Thank you to all the participants in the project, and joy on the audience level too. Really, it's only okay to live through a pandemic when arts leaders like all of you break through to new forms and new skills. As others have said, please keep this project going somehow and vote. Well, folks, it seems like we're quite near wrap-up time here. We want to thank these amazing artists on this call from all over the world for all the sleepless nights that they've put in to keep opera alive through an unprecedented, well, I shouldn't say unprecedented because it happened in the 14th century, but through through a unique time in our lifetimes. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the donations to the individual companies. Please spread the word. Tales from a Safe Distance is up for the rest of the year. You can certainly watch it again. We can get new viewers, and do we call them viewers? We call them listeners. What do you do when it's an opera online? See, brave new world. Thank you very much for making this possible.
Well, we've dropped our last installment in this iteration of this consortium of people, of companies. Who knows? Maybe something will come soon. We are talking about it. I'll leave it there. But again, you can watch all the way to the end of the year. If you liked what you saw, please tell everyone you know to watch. And you can go back and watch the whole affair in one pull if you want. You start at the first one and watch all 4. It'd take about 2 hours. It'd be the best 2 hours you ever spend. Well, again, thank you to our wonderful guests here. Thank you to all of you for supporting this wonderful endeavor. And good night, everybody.
Good night.